Okay, we are live. So we're on, Dr. Tone. Welcome.
Excellent. Great to be with you, mate. Great to be here. Great to be live.
Now, why don't you, I'm going to get this email kicked off to our crew while you welcome everybody on board.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone to the Marketing Your Practice show with Tony and Angus here from Adio Media. It is great to be with you. And I'm on a remote location here. I'm actually an undisclosed remote location. No, just joking. I'm in Broken Hill, a beautiful country town, New South Wales, outback New South Wales of Broken Hill, up here doing a locum. Filling in for the wonderful Zach O'Brien and Andrew Kerr. Great little town, great people, great to be with them. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that I'm not sitting next to you, Dr. Angus. But anyway,
it's
welcome.
A while since we've had one together in the studio here. I'm looking back and forwards there too. We've been in. We're up in Noosa. I was away last week. You were here before that. You were away. So.
You've just got back from your honeymoon.
I have just got back from 8 days in Bali, my first trip to Bali. So I'm not sure how I got to 43 years of age as an Australian man and haven't been to Bali. So that's unusual, given it's a bit of a rite of passage for many of us as well. So if you're joining us now, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice show. Today we're talking about the 6 practice multipliers. So if your goal is to have a profitable practice, a predictable practice, so one where you know what's going to happen, you know what I need to do next week, the week after, next year, and enjoyable. And this is really important, and a sustainable practice as well. So Tony and I have both personally participated in burnout. We've been there. Don't do it. It sucks. And there are other ways to go about having. So we can talk all through what we see as 6 practice multipliers to help you do all of those kind of things. So that's really what we're going to spend some time talking about today. So if you're here, a huge big welcome. We start all of that, as I look down at the timer now, in about 7 minutes and 40 seconds as well. So we'll be kicking ourselves off. So if you're joining us, and as you're joining us, I can see some of you coming on now, jump on into the chat, say hi. Let us know where you're from, what's going on in your part of the world at the moment. We'd like an opportunity to say hello to you as well. I think everything's going. Let us know if you can hear us both. So Tony and I can hear you, and you can hear me, obviously. But can you hear us out there?
Mate, I can't see who's getting on or where they're from or anything there. So I haven't got that screen. So anyway,
no, you're going to be missing.
Send me a love heart. I like those love hearts. I think they're great. Well, even up here in Broken Hill.
Yeah, okay, so that's all working. There you go. Grant's giving you a thumbs up. I'm not quite sure. It's not quite a love heart, Grant, but it's a damn good start. So
I'll take it as a love heart. A love heart shaped as a thumb.
It's a love heart. So Grant, where are you from? Let us know where in the world you are at the moment as well. So usually this time it's Thursday lunchtime here in Australia as well. But so for many of our North American friends, it's in the evening for them as they're often jumping on as well. So our Aussies are on lunch break as well. So where are you from, Grant? Let us know. You're out in the middle of nowhere like Tony is at the moment. So you mentioned before, Tony, you're in a beautiful little country town of Broken Hill. Is that drawing a long bow, calling Broken Hill a beautiful little country town?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that you might be a long bow. One being the word beautiful. It's a different, maybe a different definition of beautiful. It is harsh out here. We are really in the outback New South Wales. There's no water. It really is a harsh place. Yet there is a beauty about it. As I drove from Victoria up through Mildura, the Murray River, the greenery that comes along with that, and then it's just into this vast open span of nothing. Goats roaming around, emus. I had an emu run up my car. That was a pretty cool experience.
Right.
But yeah, look, it is, and the other word is little. It's not a little town. There's, 17,000 people that live here. It's a thriving hub. People come in from hundreds of kilometres. This morning I had people in for adjustments from hundreds of kilometres away. They work on a station on hundreds of thousands of acres, and they come into Broken Hill for their tune-up, their adjustments, and their shopping and all that sort of stuff. So it really is a little mecca here in outback New South Wales.
Good work. So Grant is telling us he's from Milton in Ontario, Canada. So, well, welcome, Grant. I'm guessing it's probably in the evening for you there. So as more of you are coming on and joining us, then A big welcome, Angus here and Tony from Adio Media, and it's the Marketing Your Practice show, where, guess what, we're going to talk about all things marketing. Today is really a process. I had a chat a little while ago, just before I actually left my honeymoon, with a great business coach. She was talking a lot about mostly chiropractors that she coaches too, but in that demographic that's maybe just another 10 years older than you and I, Tone, that I feel like they're getting left behind, a little overwhelmed by technology, by Facebook, by Instagram, not quite sure how to use some of these modern methods of communicating, and then knowing, how do I do that in a way that's not pushy or not sleazy? If that sounds like you in totality or in part there too, then stick around, because we're going to talk about how we implement, what does a practice in 2018 need to look like for it to be thriving, for it to be profitable, predictable, enjoyable, sustainable. So we think there are 6 steps or 6 pillars, 6 magnifiers that we've really broken them down. That's really what we're going to talk a lot about today as well. Looking forward to chatting about that too in a little over 3 minutes and 50 seconds also. So in fact, a bit of a heads up too, if you're interested in some of our podcasts coming up in the near future, we're going to start taking some guests on. So we've got some interviews lined up, other people that we're interviewing. But in terms of guests, we want you guys on here because we're going to start, Tony and I do some very small boutique coaching to help different practices through this stuff too. And so we're going to start doing some of these over on our podcasts as well. So if you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like some free one-on-one coaching through these 6 steps we're going to talk about today, then just jump on board. We don't normally do these for free, but we will. If you're happy to have it recorded, then we'll coach you right the way through from step 1 all the way through to have you, a really rockin' marketing plan that you can start to implement to build trust, authority, expertise, celebrity even, if that's what you want as well. So let us know down there as well. So 2 minutes 50 until we're kicking off. Today we're talking about the 6 practice multipliers. I gotta work out which M word I used as well. So as you're jumping on, gang, let us know who you're from. We've got Grant from Canada. I'm not sure if we've got anybody else any further away than that as well. So if we've got any Aussies on, it'd be nice for you to pop in and say hi. Let us know who we're chatting with.
G'day.
With as well as we move forward. So Tone, how much longer are you in Broken Hill for?
I'll be here another 2 days, mate. Just back on Saturday. It's now Thursday, so I've got this afternoon, all day tomorrow, and a cheeky little Saturday morning session, and then I'll hit the road for the 900-kilometre journey home, because there's no flights out on Saturday or Sunday to Melbourne, so I had to drive. Otherwise, I couldn't get home till Monday. So yeah, back to the kids Saturday night. So
for those of you that don't work in kilometres, 900 kilometres is about 500 miles. Maybe somewhere around that.
600 miles, yeah, something like that.
Yep, so it's a fair drive that he's got coming on as well. So jump on in. I can see how many of you are on here and joining and watching us at the moment there too. So pop in.
Shy.
Say hi. The whole great thing about it being live is it can be a conversation rather than just with you guys as well, rather than just a dialogue between Tony and myself. So if you are just joining us now, we're about to kick off in a minute and a half, and we're talking our way through what Tony and I refer to as the 6 practice magnifiers. This is really about bringing your practice into the 21st century. There's a lot of the principles that Tony and I talk about are timeless, but some of them are way easier for us to implement now than any time in history as well. And you can get overwhelmed. And if you get overwhelmed, then many times overwhelm leads to procrastination. And that's how we end up getting left behind. I know for me, what started this journey for me 15 years or so ago was, building a thriving practice, taking some time out and then coming back in and seeing how much things had changed. What worked initially to start my practice didn't work when I needed to kind of rebuild a second time as well. So that's what we're going to start talking about in a grand old 36 seconds as well. So
just touching on what you said there before, mate, about people wanting to be a little case study for our podcast. If they do want to do that, what's the best way? Should we get them to email me? Comment below.
Either. At this, comment down beneath here, or send an email to tony@adiomedia.com, just saying you'd like to be a guest. And this, there's no no hidden requirements other than get on the phone, let us know what your problems are with regards to running your practice, and we'll see if we can help at all. So there'll be a couple of questions back and forwards. If we think we can help, we'll get on, we'll record it live, and we'll give you a really detailed plan of where to go to get started so that you can get yourself back up to speed, start to have a more predictable, profitable practice as well. So, Tone, the clock has hit 0, which means it's time for us to start. So it's now 1:30 here in Melbourne. So a huge, big welcome to the Marketing Your Practice show. You're here with the founders. I like to call ourselves the founders, CEOs, vice presidents and presidents of ADIO Media, Dr. Angus Pyke, and my dearest friend, and last time he was standing next to me, my best man, Tony Rose. Hello, Tone. How you doing?
G'day. I am doing great. Back on the tools here in Broken Hill and ready for a great podcast going through these 6 magnifiers. So fired up.
So let's start with, I've got our little bottom thirds up here to do. So gang, if you're joining us here today, then welcome. We're going to chat through what we refer to as the 6 practice multipliers as well. So here's what this is about. Here's why this is important for you. These are the pillars that help to build a predictable, profitable, sustainable, and enjoyable practice. So, they're what underpins, some of them are very specific to us as healthcare providers, mostly alternate healthcare providers. So whether you're a chiropractor, an osteopath, naturopath, Chinese med practitioner, even a lot of personal trainers and stuff that listen to us here as well. So if we're to have a thriving practice moving forwards, we want to be ticking as many boxes as we possibly can as we move our way through these 6 multipliers as well. Now, the first one here is, we're going to break down into a couple of different points there as well. The first one is all about being great at what you do. And so often when people are wanting to get into marketing, they're wanting to kind of increase their reach out into the community. If marketing is not built upon a product that makes a difference in somebody's life or that solves somebody's problem, then giving you more people is not going to help at all. In fact, what it will do is it will expose more problems more quickly as well. So the foundation needs to come with this is, do I have a product? Do I have a service? Do I have a skill set that actually makes a difference in somebody's life? And if you can answer yes to that very first question, then that's the foundation that building this thriving practice really comes from. But if you can't answer that with absolute clarity, then there's really one of 2 paths to go down. So in one of the practices that I have with my now wife, Lauren, we have a great new associate who's doing a killing job. She's knocking it out of the park. She is really great at what she does. But what her issues is around what's often, I think it was the Pyke principles, talked about having faith, confidence, and belief in your products, services, and ideas. So it's about getting confident that she could. So she doesn't need more information. It's not about that too. But there comes this level of confidence and certainty that, I see that if I'm looking at a patient after 20 years of doing this, if I know I can help them, I can look them in the eye and I can say, you know what, you're in the right place. We deal with this all the time. Let's get to work. And there's a level of that confidence from there too that is so important. It's whether it's you call them your patients, your clients, your customers, whatever, they can pick up on that subconsciously. And when we want particularly somebody looking after our healthcare, then hope, confidence, faith, all those kind of things there are really essential ingredients. So when we say that first point here of that you need to be good at what you do, I think it kind of fits into one of those 2 categories. Now, if you don't feel like, we're going to talk about in a moment in terms of choosing a group of people that you need to be, want to be great with. The bottom line is do you need to upskill a little bit? Have you been in practice without taking some continuing education for years, decades? So it might well be that you go, you know what, before I reach out into my community, let me read some books, let me take some courses, maybe let me do some postgraduate training as well. Now, for most of you, you're university trained, you've got a great skill set, so it might be kind of in that, do I just need to get more confidence in what I do? So what are your thoughts around that, Tone?
Yeah, I think they're great points. One thing that comes to mind is sometimes we can use that as an excuse for just procrastination, can't we? We can think, but if I just did an extra course or I just had an extra qualification, then I'd be more confident. But often the case that just breeds procrastination. And sometimes we've just got to, just work on ourselves. We don't need more things to learn, but just more confidence in us as human beings, and getting clear around what you are offering, and being confident with that. As you said, being able to look someone in the eye and say, yes, I can help, and this is what it's going to take. But it often is a big step for people to say, this is what it's going to take. It's almost like they interview the patient to say, what will you be willing to do with what I can do, versus saying, here's the plan of attack, and this is how we're going to get you well. So don't procrastinate on it, but yes, absolutely. Great points.
We talked a little while ago, because you're right, we often use, I'll get started when I'm good enough. And sometimes we use that as a real barrier to kind of hide between. It's really just fear, and it's that fear of, am I good enough, and fear of wanting to be liked. We did a whole podcast on this recently, if you check through, in terms of dealing with fear as well. And the bottom line is this, is just be aware, look, you're never going to be in a situation where everyone likes you. You aren't going to be able to help everybody all the time. And if you're waiting till the stage where everyone will like you and you'll be able to help everyone, then you'll never get started. And that's really just an excuse that we want to make sure that we get ourselves out of, using those kind of excuses as well. So the first magnifier that we talk from, the foundational pillar as we're moving forwards, if we're going to have a thriving practice, is really all about, let's be good at what I'm doing. Do I need to upskill in terms of information technology, or is it all about my faith, my confidence, belief that I move forwards as well? So that jumps us on to point number 2. And our second step there is, we talk about a lot of this. The second magnifier, that if we really want to do this, is quite counterintuitive to what many of you think when we're wanting to reach more people. And that is to begin, and the word is to begin, or start by actually focusing on a smaller group of people. And you'll see as we talk through these pillars in terms of building expertise and authority, the very nature of an expert is nobody is an expert on everything. They tend to be a focused expert on one thing. And as we build that focus around a very specific group of people there, we're able to communicate with people in a very specific kind of way. So more now than any time in history, it's incredibly noisy out there. So if you're wanting to be known, liked and trusted in your community, then you've got to be heard. And if you're trying to communicate with everybody, that's a surefire way for you to just be a part of the noise. What you need to be able to do is communicate to a group of people in a way that they understand, using their language, identifying their fears, their frustrations, their worries, and providing solutions that look like they're designed exactly for them, because that'll be what'll stop the scroll, whether it be through Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. When it feels like that you're talking to me, Tony and I have decided very much with ADO Media is that we like dealing with alternate health practitioners. Could this information be great for somebody who has a panel beaters? Then yep. In fact, I have a great friend of mine who's a panel beater who I've gone through all this kind of information with. But the bottom line is that we focus on dealing and sharing this information in around alternate health practitioners. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to deal with that one group of people for the rest of your life, but start with one, build authority and expertise in around that, and then start to build one on top of the other and top of the other. Now, this is not something that can be done in days or weeks. It takes months, and it might even be the next 12 months that you choose a group that you're going to focus on. Now, when you're choosing a group, there's some really important things. And Tony, I love your take on this in terms of what are the things that, if someone's thinking about focusing on a particular group over the next 12 months, what are some things that they need to kind of take into account when they're thinking about an audience?
Well, I think for me, there's two major factors. Is, if I'm looking at an audience that I want to market to have them, more of them come in, it needs to be a group of people that I love working with. It's, when I was in practice full time, I didn't necessarily love working with older people, so I'm not going to market to older people. I much prefer dealing with younger people and energetic people. I'm going to market to them. And so first thing is to make sure that the particular niche or target audience that you're choosing is someone that you actually love coming in. You love having lots of them in your practice. And then the second factor is that you're actually good at dealing with them. You can actually help these people. It's nothing, if I had marketed for people who were young and energetic, yet they were golf injuries or something like that, I don't think I'm necessarily great at that. But could it be headaches? Absolutely. I think I can help a lot of people with headaches. So it's got to be that beautiful blend between love the people and you can actually help these people a great deal and solve a lot of their problems, and you've got confidence in that. So that'd be the two major things for me.
Yeah, so that's good points. And perhaps another one in there as well, is it profitable? Are these people that can pay your bills as well? I mean, let's not make it any harder than it needs to be as well. So now, does this mean that these are the only people that you'll be able to see in your practice? Then no. We often give the example of a guy who focused his whole plumbing business on repairing hot water services as well. And after he'd repaired someone's hot water service, what he would say to them is, look, I do general plumbing as well. I fix leaky taps, broken toilets, all those kind of things there too. So if you need any general plumbing needs, then we can help with that. And these might be the conversations as well that you could have with your patients once they're coming in. You can continue to educate them, and you want them, almost, our good friend Russ Rosen says that ideally you want your practice members saying, oh my God, I had no idea that you could help me with so much. But we want to have an avenue that goes in. If somebody's searching through Google, if they have headaches, then they'll be looking for solutions for headaches. They're not going to be looking for the generalist. They're looking for somebody specifically to kind of help them out there as well. So if you're joining us now for the Marketing Your Practice show, then huge, big welcome to you. Today we're spending some time talking about the 6 practice multipliers. So these are the pillars really that help to build a profitable, predictable, sustainable and enjoyable practice as well. They're also the pillars that help to bring you into what we often refer to as the 21st century of practice. So many of you are getting left behind. So things are different now than, things are changing. I think it was the World Economic Forum recently said that for those of you that have kids in primary school, Tony, you've got some in primary school, mine are high school, 65% of the jobs that those kids will have, or the kids there too, aren't even around nowadays. So they're not even invented, or they don't even exist yet. And the fact of the matter is, the way that we used to run a practice 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, is very different than how it needs to be now. And that's really what these pillars are really all about. And so our first pillar we spoke about is, look, you need to, and this is always, it's true, you need to be great at what you're doing. If you're not great at what you're doing, then get great, get your confidence great as well. And then step number 2, we talked about begin by focusing on just one audience. And we do that so we can break through the noise that's happening in our community as well. Now, number 3, as I kind of kick myself over on here, number 3, our next point 3, is that nowadays more so than ever, there's a great ease for us to be everywhere, for us to be omnipresent, or a concept that Tony and I often refer to as mere exposure. Now, mere exposure is a psychology term, and it really relates to this, is that we tend to like things that we see more often. And so if somebody's scrolling through Facebook, through Instagram, looking in their newspaper, through their school newsletters, if they're constantly seeing Tony's face, the more they see his face from there too, and provided he's not doing anything ridiculous, then there's a level of trust that just comes from seeing somebody again and again and again. Now, as little as 20 years ago, this was difficult and very expensive to do. It was really something that was only large companies, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Nike, Adidas, that could kind of pull this kind of stuff off. But now we can get in front of content, put our content and our faces in front of people for dollars. $5 a week is enough for you to start to be putting your helpful, valuable content out there as well. So pillar number 3 is about being everywhere. Now, you've all had these experiences where you've perhaps gone to a website, done a search through Amazon, and then you see that thing keep on popping up again and again and again. Every website you go, there's advertisements for that as well. Well, we want to be doing that same thing. We want to be building relationships with people all the time so they start to see you as an authority and a celebrity. We'll talk more about that on point 4. But Tone, what are your thoughts on being everywhere? What do you add to that?
Look, just the fact that it's actually possible is unbelievable, whereas it used to only be, we could only ever really be everywhere. We started practice for the low-hanging fruit. You could be in the yellow pages, you could be in the white pages, you could be on a sign out the side of your practice. But you nowadays, you can just do it. You can be everywhere. I mean, even just the fact that I'm sitting up here in Broken Hill, you're in Melbourne, our audience is worldwide, and we're delivering a message which will then become a podcast, we then on YouTube. I mean, it's just amazing that we can do that, and we can do it for our practices as well. You guys, you can be everywhere, and it doesn't need to take a huge amount of time of yours to become everywhere.
I think because in terms of being everywhere, the great thing is that these platforms nowadays, these social media platforms, which are really the tools that we're going to use to be everywhere, they allow us to do something that's been very difficult to do beforehand, and that is basically just advertise, communicate, share our valuable information with people in our postcodes. So the vast majority of us, if you have a four-wall business where you're having patients come in and see you, the vast majority of the people come within a kind of 10-kilometre radius. We all have people that come from further, but the vast majority of them. So we want to be everywhere for people in that 10-kilometre radius. Now, perhaps some more country practices might want to be a little bit further out, or if you have an online component to your business, which I hope that you do, we'll talk about that in a further podcast. But we want to be everywhere just for those people, and we can reach them, as Tony said, in a way nowadays that hasn't been able to be done. It was very manual. It was newspaper, it was letterbox drops, all those kind of things there too. It's easier, cheaper than ever for us to be able to share that information as well. So step number 3 of our 6 practice magnifiers is be everywhere. So on to step number 4, because step number 4 is like, okay, Angus, if I'm going to be everywhere, like what am I doing everywhere? And that's the next thing. Well, I like the idea of this. Step number 1, I'm great at what I do. Step number 2, I've chosen my audience. Step number 3, I want to be everywhere. I'm ready for that. But what am I being everywhere doing? Well, what you're doing is you're building trust, you're building authority, and you're building expertise. And you're doing that by going first. So, Tone, let me handball it over to you. What do we mean by going first?
What we mean by going first is actually delivering value. You're not waiting for someone to necessarily come in and see you before you actually help them or deliver value. You want to do that up front. You want to be knowing your audience so well that you know what their problems are, you know what they're suffering from, you know what their fears and frustrations are, and that you have a plan of attack to actually solve those problems before they even want to do business with you. And so there has been this reluctance from a lot of people to kind of deliver part messages or give half of the tools. It'd be like us doing this podcast saying, well, we'll just give you the first 3 of these 6 and then we'll wait for you to buy something and then we'll deliver the last 3. But what we're doing here is we're delivering value in advance. We are giving you the whole box and dice for you to help you in your practice to become more predictable and profitable and sustainable. And so what we need to be doing with the practice is giving great information that actually solves people's problems and helps them on their journey to being a better human being or whatever problem they want to have solved. That's what going first means, and we need to be doing more of it.
The language of, if our goal is to build this thriving practice, then you can almost think this: the more people in your community that know, like, and trust you, the more people you're going to have getting on the phone and wanting to come and see you. And probably the key word inside of that is trust. And the way we go about building trust, the best way to go and build out trust there too is actually helping people. So, what with our wonderful, helpful content, is what'll end up happening is I'll watch your video, it'll be full of great content, and the idea is that we want our audience going, that was fabulous, Tony, what next? What next? What next? And when we start to build longer relationships, which we'll talk about, the what next will invariably end up with an appointment inside your office, or maybe having that person already referring people into you before they have even come into office. But when we start to play a longer game, which again we'll talk about in our next kind of steps coming up here too, once the momentum of this machine gets up and going, it's extraordinarily powerful where you can have a predictable practice because our videos are being watched, people are on these journeys to us providing helpful content and moving along there as well. So solving people's problems, that's what we need to. And so this is why it's so important when we go back to step number 2, which is choosing an audience. The way that we solve the problem of somebody with headaches is different than the way we solve the problems of somebody with lower back pain, is different than the way we solve the problems of somebody who's an elite athlete. So we want to be able to, whilst the principles of health are the same. You know, they're in around how somebody manages their posture, how they manage their stress, their eating, their moving. We want to be able to communicate with people in different languages. We want to communicate people with their own languages. So this concept of building authority and trust and expertise and even celebrity, the way we're going to be doing that is providing helpful content that makes a difference to somebody's life. Now, we reckon the best bang for buck, the greatest return that you'll be able to get, and you'll speed through this process by just making videos. Video is such an experiential medium, because you get to see, for those of you, some of you are listening to this now, you get to pick up a bit of personality through my intonation, through my voice, those kind of things there too. But for those of you that are watching this, whether it be on Facebook Live or later on YouTube, then you get to experience more of Tony and I. And basically we want to do business with people that we like. That's a key point there too. And video is such a great way for people to see whether they like you, whether they're a part, I want to be part of your tribe as well. So principle number 4, build authority, trust and expertise by going first as well. So on to principle number 5, which I kind of hinted at a little bit too. And Tone, don't go too quickly, play the long game.
Don't move too quickly, absolutely. And again, we've spoken about it numerous times, but the old dating analogy, you don't walk into a bar and ask the first girl that you see to marry you. So it's about playing a longer game, and it's about being willing to play that longer game. You know, so many things that we see that you guys are doing in your marketing is short-term stuff, or low-hanging fruit as we would call it. And that's okay, you can get some results from that, but the greatest results are going to come from playing this longer game. We need to be nurturing people. And I think it comes back to that concept of thinking about your marketing. Instead of looking at it for patients, we're looking at it for leads. We're looking at people who are wanting to put their hand up and say, I'm interested, Tony. I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in this video or this piece of content. I'd like to know a little bit more. And then in a normal human interactive way, we're going to say, cool, Angus, how about you then go and watch this one? Or how about you go and download this? Or go over to this blog page. And then they're going to go, wow, that was cool as well. What next? Well, would you like to get on the phone and have a quick chat about your issues? Well, okay, and this process could take months and months, or it could take weeks. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long game, but the systems that you put in place need to be a longer game system than just, hey, got back pain, want to come in for a cheap visit. That might get you some results, but it's like walking into a bar and asking the first girl to marry you. The person that says yes may not be the one that you actually really want to marry. So don't move too quickly, play the long game, date someone before you ask them to marry you.
So, Tone, some of our listeners might be thinking, man, that sounds like a heck of a lot of work, me having all these conversations with all these people over all this time. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say, like anything that's going to give great results, yes, it takes a bit of work. Does it take a huge amount of work? No, but it takes a bit of work. But you can systematize it. Again, we did a podcast, listen to our one on batching, where you can batch content. You put aside a day, a month. You could have it all done, all automated. And again, one of the beautiful things about today's technology is that we can have this automated. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be responding to everything. These emails are going to be sent out automatically. The videos are going to be posted automatically. You get the transcriptions done automatically. It's a really, really good machine that you can get up and running. Yeah, it takes a bit of effort in the beginning, but then it just goes. And when you're sleeping, people can be watching, downloading, receiving emails, etc., and being courted along the journey to then, at some point down the track, or at one point when they're ready, they'll say, you know what, I'm going to come in and see Tony. He seems pretty cool, knows what he's doing, and I reckon it's been pretty cool to be his patient.
So when we talk about having these ongoing conversations, they're not conversations like we're having in real time now. They're conversations through the content that you're sharing. And Facebook in particular now makes this easier than ever, that I can say, hey, Tony's watched this video here, show him the next one, and then show him the next one, and then show him the next one. And there's these constant, you've probably heard of funnels that we're able to put people through, and only the people that watch your videos get to see more videos. So in terms of, does it take a lot of work? There's some front-end work, but once the front end is set up with regards to this, you're off and going. And once you get great at this, it's a day a month. And my thoughts would be that if you're not prepared to put in a day a month for you to have that thriving, predictable, profitable, sustainable and enjoyable practice, then you're probably living in a fantasy land. That's why you're not there. You know, some of this takes some work. Where this is not about just us sitting back and meditating and attracting patients to us purely by thought. We have to be taking some actions towards us. But it's also not a process to this. This is not the person that works the hardest, that's the one that gets the results. In fact, this is what I love about this modern day world, particularly of the internet, because it's flattened a lot of the barriers out of it too, where the person that works the smartest is the one that's going to get the best results as well. So this process we're talking about, once you get it down, understand the batching, it's a day a month is really all you're looking about as well. So, with this idea of don't move quickly, if you kind of imagine, a pool of 100 people who, would say, look, I'd be happy at some stage to go and see a naturopath or a personal trainer, whether it be right now or at some stage, but they're open to that idea. Of those, the research would tell us there's about 4 or 5 of them that are ready to come and see you right now. So when you put content out there, that, as Tony suggested before, that said, hey, want to come on in, half price initial consultation, come and see me in the practice there too. Only 4 or 5 out of those 100 people are you going to reach. You miss the other 95 who are interested in what you have to say and are just looking for more reasons. They want to build more of a relationship. So this is how we can start to reach more people, have a greater flow of people. And as we understand the buying cycle, that not everyone's ready to buy right away. We need to build our relationship as well. So, that's what all about moving not too quickly as well. And that takes us on to our last step as we're kind of moving forwards as well. So let's have a little summary of where we're up to so far. We're talking about the 6 practice magnifiers. Step number 1 was be great at what you do. That's where we've got to start from. So once we're great at what we do, we're going to focus, to begin with at least, on a particular audience so that we're communicating in their language so they can hear us through the noise. After that, it's about being everywhere. It's about making sure that we're on Instagram and we're on Facebook and, people are seeing us in all these different kind of mediums. Easier, cheaper for us to do now than ever beforehand. What kind of things are we doing when we're everywhere? We're providing helpful content that makes a difference to people's lives as well. We need to make sure step number 5 is that we don't move too quickly as well. So that's our 5 steps up until now that we're moving our way forwards. And then we get ourselves onto the final step as we move forwards. And our final step there is all about building lifetime relationships. The most expensive marketing that we do is marketing to bring new people into our practice. The most effective marketing that we can do is to keep our relationships consistently with the people that already know, like, and trust us. And wrongfully, in many times when people stop coming to see us, we assume that we either didn't do a great job with them or they don't like us anymore or we've upset them. When in many cases, the reason that people stop seeing us is they just got sidetracked, they got busy, they got focused in another area of their life. And I'm sure many of you have been doing something that you loved, you got a bit sidetracked and then you got away from it. I've told the story with yoga and other things in my life that were working really great for me. Christmas came around, I got a bit sidetracked, but because there wasn't a process in place for this business to keep an ongoing relationship with me, you end up falling out of that habit as well. So what processes do you have in place to build lifetime relationships? And again, it could be just as simple as making sure that you're sharing your videos. You're sending out an email each week, fortnight, once a month with more helpful content, reminding them of the benefits of a checkup, what a checkup can do for them, why they should come in, what's new or different. Have you got some new supplements in? Have you got some new techniques you're doing, new ways of doing something, new information? So keeping yourself in the forefront of the people who already know, like, and trust you. Building lifetime relationships, which when we started with this idea of being great at what we do, why wouldn't they want to continue and have a lifetime relationship with you as well? So really, that's our 6th and final step when we're talking about our practice magnifiers as well. So, Tony, do you have any wisdom or any more wisdom to add to this build lifetime relationships?
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is relevance. If we can be providing content on a regular basis to those that are coming in so that they feel that we are constantly relevant in their life, then it's going to only equate to greater retention. It's going to create a greater lifetime value of your practice members that are already coming in, and it means you're going to be still looking after those ones that you love looking after. So I think if we just take that that view of staying relevant. How can we stay relevant in people's minds to be with you longer term? And you need to be providing content to them so that you're touching base with them more than just when they're in your practice. So, and again, it comes back to video being a wonderful way to do that as well, to give great relevant content so you stay relevant to them.
It's, I'm thinking about too, these are the keys to any healthy relationship, whether it be, in my case with my children, with my wife, is, I've got to remind them what value I have to them. We do this in different ways, by nurturing, by caring, by reminding people of the importance of our relationship. Some of the ways we go about that are subtle, and some of the ways we go about that are not so subtle as well. So these 6 pillars, these 6 multipliers, practice multipliers that Tony and I talk about here, when we start to build from those, and they are sequential to an extent, in that you can see that if we don't begin with the idea of being good at what we do or having confidence, then the rest of it is not going to make sense as well. So it's a building blocks that we kind of work our way through. And sometimes we need a lot of work in these areas. Sometimes we just need a little nudge as we start to move forwards. But taking little steps with these and implementing them can make an enormous difference. And as we said at the start of this too, in some upcoming shows, we're going to do some case studies where, if you're interested in having a handheld working your way through these 6 practice magnifiers, then just let us down beneath here. Say, hey, look, I'd love to be a guest on the show. Or otherwise you can email Tony. Head on over to adiomedia.com and then head to the contact section. You can send Tony a little message and say, hey, I'd like to be a guest. There's not a lot of hurdles. We'll have a quick chat with you first, find out a bit about you and let you know whether this process is helpful for you. And then we'll get on, we'll record it, and we'll give you some free coaching to kind of help you implement these as well. So it's question and answer time, Tone. So the end of the live here for us. So if you've got specific questions now about any of the 6 pillars that we've talked about, or any other questions about how you can use technology to help to build trust, authority, expertise, be the go-to person in your community, then jump on into the chat. Let us know. If today was helpful, thumbs up. Or if you just adore Tony, then give him a big love heart. Love hearts are always appreciated. Tony loves them. Thumbs up are great as well. So
be a bucket filler.
Be a bucket filler, yes. So we'll jump on. We'll hang around now for any questions. Tony, any final thoughts that you want to add to that as we're having some love hearts and stuff come in and join us?
Well, as the love hearts flood in, what comes to mind is often when I have certainly listened to things like this, and for you out there that are listening, I want you to have a think about this. When was the last time that you were listening to something and then you took action and then it made a massive impact in your life or your practice? And it reminds me, we just put together the Thrive Summit, and we interviewed Coach Steve Krebs. And on that call, he mentioned a program that the listeners should do. And I wonder how many people actually did what he said. Well, I did it, and I signed up for that program that he recommended. And it's been nothing short of profound for me in the last 3 weeks. There's been tears, there's been laughter, there's been happiness, hopefulness, all that sort of stuff. But my point being, gang, if you're just going to listen to this and it's going to be a nice jacuzzi experience where we all feel good and we all like each other and go, you're a nice guy, I'm a good bloke, you're a good chick, who cares, really, in the end of the day? Unless you actually take some action from what we're doing here. And one of the actions might be signing up to be a guest on the podcast. One might be to just write down and get really clear on your niche for that step. It might be writing out a series of content that you know that you want to put across. You know that you can share your brilliance with people that you haven't been. What is the action step? Because I want you to take it and actually make a difference in your life. There's nothing makes Angus and I happier than when we see people actually making cool and helpful videos that are helping their community, growing their practice. It's win, 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 and win. And as our friend Steve Franson says, we're in the business of saving lives. When business is good, everyone wins. And so, I don't know, it's a bit of a rant, but get out there, make some action, take some action, and make a difference. And you'll be amazed at the results.
Yeah,
rant over.
Good point, buddy, and a great rant too. And that's the thing. Action is where it's all at from there too. Get rid of some of that perfectionism. push the procrastination over to the side there. You know, I was listening to a guy the other day. It was such a good point. He was talking about failure. And he said, look, you know nowadays, it's really hard to catastrophically fail. Like, what can you do really to, all this stuff that we're talking about here, if you muck up, you're not going to lose your house. You're not going to be thrown in jail. You're not going to have your loved ones just go, right, that's it, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. And if they did say that, then I would be concerned that they were your loved ones. So, you know, how do we go wrong with this kind of stuff here too? They're good, solid principles as well. Now, of course, you know, when we think about failure, I'm reading Ray Dalio's Principles at the moment, and it's just, you know, it's another great thing in terms of understanding. We have an audacious goal. We plan that there's going to be some hurdles there as well. We'll hit those hurdles, it'll drop down, we'll get some new strategies, and up we'll go again. And this cycle of evolution, which is what nature has shown us of how things have been progressing forwards, is the same with your and my practice as well, Tone. So I appreciated your rant there as well. We've had some lovely words from Ryan and Grant, who both said thanks for the show. So guys, thanks Ryan, awesome. Grant, thanks for joining us today. We love doing this. We also love it when we actually hear from you. We can see there's a bunch of you around here, and our goal is to get some interaction, more of that happening. But we appreciate you taking the time with that as well. So Tone, I know you've got patients to look after back up at Broken Hill. I've got coffee to drink here as well. So on behalf of Tony and myself from Adio Media, thanks for joining us for the Marketing Your Practice show. We look forward to seeing you same time, same place, same back channel next week. Over and out, gang.
See you, gang.